Hey guys, tonight we begin with the hidden world of the Georgian manor house. Not the glittering ballrooms or the lavish dinners, but the army of silent, scurrying figures who made that glitter possible. The servants. Imagine the cold. A deep, stone-swallowed chill that has nothing to do with the weather outside. It's the cold of a flagstone floor at 4 a.m., of a draft that has been sliding under doors for 200 years. The air smells of old beeswax, faint soot, and the damp wool of your own uniform. Somewhere far above you in the warm parts of the house, a bell on a coiled wire jingles once, sharp and imperious. Your day has begun. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you are a housemaid in a grand English manor circa 1785. Your name is whatever the lady of the house decides to call you today. Maybe it's Molly, maybe it's Jane. It doesn't really matter. You are less a person and more a function, a pair of hands attached to a starched white cap. Your world is a vertical slice of the house, from the steaming, chaotic kitchens deep in the basement to the hushed, carpeted bedrooms on the upper floors, where the family sleeps blissfully unaware of the machinery that keeps their world turning. Your alarm clock isn't a gentle chime. It's the sound of the head housemaid, Mrs. Higgs, rapping her knuckles on the doorframe of the female servants' dormitory. It's a sound like a gunshot in the silence, and it means get up, get dressed, and do not make a sound. The room you share with 5 other girls is freezing. There's no fire permitted in here, of course. That's a luxury for the family. Your breath hangs in the air as you fumble in the near-total darkness for your clothes. First, the scratchy wool stockings. Then the linen shift, which you've probably slept in because it was too cold to take off. Then layers, a stiff, boned stays that someone else wore before you and will wear after you, laced so tight it's a little hard to take a deep breath. This isn't for fashion, it's for posture. A slouching servant is an idle servant, and idleness is a sin. Over that, a heavy wool dress, usually a drab brown or grey, chosen specifically to not show the dirt and soot you'll be wrestling all day. An apron, starched to a cardboard-like stiffness. And finally, the cap. Always the cap. It pins your hair back, out of sight, out of mind. You are now uniform, you are now ready to work. The first task of the day is also the most backbreaking. The fires. While the family slumbers, you and the other junior maids are tasked with reviving the house from its nocturnal death. You carry scuttles of coal and bundles of wood up endless, narrow, twisting staircases. The servants' stairs, of course. You'd never be seen on the main staircase. That's for the family and their guests. The servants' stairs are steep, uneven and dark, worn down in the middle by 2 centuries of tired feet. You enter the main bedrooms like a ghost. The air is still thick with sleep and the scent of perfume and wine from the night before. The embers in the grand fireplace are barely glowing. You kneel on the hearth, which is still warm, and you work quickly, quietly. Paper, kindling, smaller logs. You blow gently on the embers until a flame catches. The goal is to have a roaring, cheerful fire by the time the bell rings for the family to wake up. If you're too slow, if the room is cold when Mr. or Mrs. Wonderful deigns to emerge from their 4-poster bed, that's your fault. That's a mark against you, and marks lead to deductions from your wages, or worse, a dismissal without a character reference. A servant without a reference might as well jump in the river. There is no coming back from that. As the new fire crackles to life, you take a moment to look around. This is the closest you'll ever get to this life. The silk hangings on the bed, the fine mahogany dressing table littered with silver brushes and crystal bottles, the thick Persian rug that feels like heaven under your worn-down shoes. You might run a finger over the surface of the dressing table, leaving a trace in the dust you'll have to clean later, just to feel it, just to remember what smooth feels like. Then Mrs. Higgs clears her throat from the doorway. You didn't hear her come in. She never makes a sound. She is the ghost of all ghosts. You jump back to work. Next, the slops. This is the part they never show in the paintings. Every bedroom has a chamber pot, tucked discreetly into a cabinet or under the bed. It's your job to retrieve it. You carry it carefully, trying not to slosh down all those same narrow stairs, through the back passages, and out to the designated area for disposal. The smell is legendary. It clings to your clothes, your hair, your very soul. You get used to it, the same way you get used to being tired. It just becomes part of the background music of your life. By now, the sky outside is beginning to lighten from black to a deep, watery blue. The kitchen, deep in the bowels of the house, is already an inferno of activity. This is the true engine room. The cook, a man of immense girth and even greater temper, is bellowing at the kitchen maids. The air is thick with the smell of baking bread, frying bacon, and the overwhelming heat of the main oven, which is large enough to roast an entire sheep. You don't belong here. You're an upstairs maid. There's a strict hierarchy, a social ladder even among the servants, and you stay in your lane. You grab a quick breakfast. This isn't a leisurely meal. You eat standing up, usually in a corner of the kitchen or in the servants' hall. A sparse, utilitarian room with a long wooden table and hard benches. The food is plain but filling. Oat porridge, a thick slice of bread, maybe a bit of cheese. You wash it down with weak, lukewarm tea. You have approximately 10 minutes. Then the bells start again. A different bell for each room, connected by wires to pulls in the main parts of the house. A jingle from the master's study. A double ring from the ladies' sitting room. The day has officially begun for them, which means the real work has officially begun for you. You take a deep breath, smooth down your apron, and make your way back up the stairs. The sun isn't even properly up yet, and you've already been working for 2 hours. Your back aches, your hands are chapped, and you smell faintly of chamber pot and coal dust. But you're not even close to being done. The family is awake, and the performance must begin. Continuing on from the frantic, shadowy pre-dawn chores, the house is now officially awake. The bells have spoken. The performance of effortless luxury must begin for the family, which means the performance of invisible labor intensifies for you. Now comes the art of being a ghost in plain sight. Your first major task, once the master and mistress have vacated their bedrooms for breakfast, is the great bed-making. This isn't just pulling up a duvet. This is a military operation involving layers of linen, wool, and feather that weigh more than you do. You start by stripping the beds. The linen sheets, if you're lucky, are fine Holland cloth. If you're not, they're a coarser, scratchier variety that leaves red marks on tender skin, not that the family would ever notice. The sheets are hauled down to the laundry maids, who are already starting their own version of hell in the scullery, boiling vast copper vats of water. But you stay upstairs. The mattress, a giant ticking sack stuffed with wool or horsehair, has to be turned and plumped. You heave and shove, your arms burning. Then the base sheet, tucked in with hospital corners so tight a shilling could bounce off them. Then a blanket. Then another. Then the counterpane, a heavy, often embroidered cover that completes the fortress of sleep. Every crease must be smoothed, every pillow pummeled into sublime softness. A poorly made bed is a direct reflection of a slovenly maid, and Mrs. Higgs will run her hand over the surface, feeling for lumps of rebellion. After the beds, the dusting. This isn't a quick flick with a feather duster. This is a religious rite. You have a basket of tools, soft cloths for polished surfaces, a different, slightly damp cloth for marble. a stiff brush for intricate carvings. You dust everything: the mantelpiece, the picture frames, the legs of the chairs, the countless little knickknacks and ornaments that exist solely to catch dust. You learn to move objects, dust beneath them, and return them to the exact same spot, measured by an invisible mark. A hair's breadth out of place, and the lady will know. She may not know your name, but she knows the position of her porcelain shepherdesses down to the millimeter. This is her world, and you are merely its custodian. As you work, you have to be constantly aware of the soundscape of the house, the murmur of conversation from the breakfast room, the rustle of a newspaper, the click of a door handle. Your entire existence is predicated on not being heard, not being seen. If you encounter a member of the family or a guest in the hallway, you press yourself against the wall, eyes downcast, and wait for them to pass. You are part of the wallpaper. You are a moving piece of furniture. If you must speak, it is in a low murmur. Very good, sir. My apologies, ma'am. Your vocabulary is whittled down to a few dozen servile phrases. Around mid-morning there's a shift. The upstairs work pauses, and the downstairs world demands your presence. Luncheon is being prepared, and that means a flurry of setting the table in the servants' hall. This is where you get a glimpse of the intricate social ladder you're trapped on. You do not sit at the head of the table. That is reserved for the butler and the housekeeper, Mr. Sterling and Mrs. Higgs. They are the aristocracy of your world. They have private rooms, a degree of freedom, and the power to make or break you. Then come the senior staff, the cook, the valet, the lady's maid. They have specialized skills and a touch more respect. Then the great unwashed mass, the footmen, the housemaids, the kitchen maids, the scullery maid. You are at the bottom of this pile. The footmen, in their livery, might swagger and joke, feeling superior because they get to wear fancy clothes and occasionally be seen by the family. The conversation is hushed, a mixture of gossip about the family and complaints about the work. You learn that the master is in a foul mood because his investments are down. You learn that the young miss has a secret suitor. This information is your currency. It helps you anticipate needs, avoid wrath, and navigate the day. The food is placed on the table: a large joint of meat, a steaming pot of potatoes, a boiled pudding. There are rules here too. The senior staff are served first. You wait. You do not take the best cut. You do not speak with your mouth full. This meal is perhaps 20 minutes long. It is not for enjoyment, it is for refueling. Then it's back to the grind. The afternoon brings a different kind of task: the endless sewing. A maid's work is never done, and that includes needlework. There are sheets to be mended, towels to be hemmed, buttons to be sewn back on shirts. You sit in the housekeeper's room under her watchful eye, with a pile of mending that seems to regenerate itself. The light from the window is fading, and you squint, pushing a needle through thick fabric. Your fingers are pricked and sore. This is quiet, sedentary work, but it's somehow more mentally exhausting than hauling coal. It requires focus, and your mind wants to wander, to dream of a life where you aren't constantly stitching up the holes in someone else's world. Later, you might be tasked with accompanying a footman to the market or helping the lady's maid air out a gown. Every task is a lesson in your place. You carry the parcels, you hold the basket. You are the auxiliary, the support system for the support system. As late afternoon bleeds into evening, the tempo changes once more. The family will be dressing for dinner, the main event of their day. This means the fires, which have been kept smouldering, must be built up again into roaring blazes. The candles must be lit, hundreds of them, in sconces and chandeliers and candelabras. This is a dangerous, delicate job. One drip of wax on the polished table, one stray spark on the carpet, and you're finished. The house is transformed. The dim, practical daylight is replaced by a warm, golden glow. It's almost beautiful. You can hear the faint sounds of laughter and clinking glass from the dining room. They are eating, drinking, being witty. The smell of roasted meat and rich sauces wafts through the house, a cruel and constant reminder of what you are not having for your own supper. Your back aches, your feet are numb blocks, and you have been on duty for over 16 hours, but you're not done. The night is young for them, which means it is ancient for you. As the family's laughter echoes from the dining room, a new kind of exhaustion sets in, the deep, bone-level fatigue of a day that has already been 18 hours long. The grand dinner downstairs signals the beginning of the end for the family. But for you, it inaugurates the final, most demanding act, the night shift. This is where the illusion of effortless grandeur is maintained through sheer, sleep-deprived will. Your first duty is the vigil. While the family enjoys their dessert, jellies, syllabub, nuts and wine, you and the other maids must stand ready in the shadowy corridors. You are there to anticipate a need before it's even voiced. A spill of wine on a cuff? You appear with a clean napkin and a dab of soda water. A guest feeling a draft? You are already repositioning a fire screen. You become an extension of the room's atmosphere, a silent spirit of convenience. The footmen, looking impressively stoic in their wigs and livery, are doing the same inside the room, but they get to be part of the spectacle. You are part of the machinery behind the walls. The worst sound in the world is the gentle ting of a silver bell being rung. It means someone has specifically requested something, and you have to move quickly but silently to answer it. The request is never simple. It's never fetch a blanket. It must fetch the blue cashmere blanket from the cedar chest in the East Wing linen room and ensure it has been aired. This involves a journey through the cold, dark back passages of the house, your heart pounding, hoping you've interpreted the instruction correctly, and that the blanket is where it's supposed to be. A mistake here is not just an error, it's a disruption of the family's reality, and that is the ultimate sin. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the sounds from the dining room change. The chairs scrape back. The conversation grows louder and more fluid as they move towards the drawing room for tea, coffee, and perhaps cards or music. This is your signal for the next massive undertaking, resetting the dining room. You flood into the room the moment the last guest has departed. The scene is one of beautiful devastation. The long mahogany table is a landscape of half-eaten food, stained glassware, crumpled napkins, and pooling candle wax. The air is thick with the smells of roast meat, port wine, and cigar smoke. There is no time to appreciate the remnants of the feast. This is a military operation executed with precision and speed. Your hands move in a blur. You cannot simply pile the dishes. There is an order. The fine china is handled with a reverence usually reserved for religious relics. One chip, one crack, and the cost could be deducted from your wages for a year. The silver must be gathered and counted immediately under the butler's hawk-like gaze. A missing fork is a crisis that can halt the entire cleanup. It must be found. Everyone stops. You get on your hands and knees, searching under the table, under the rug, your heart in your throat. The silver is not just cutlery, it is the family's wealth made manifest. Once the table is cleared, the real work begins. The table itself must be polished. You and another maid take opposite ends of a heavy, felt-lined cloth and run it back and forth over the vast surface until it gleams like a dark, still pond. Your arms scream in protest. Then the carpet must be brushed, the crumbs collected, the hearth swept and relaid with fresh kindling for the morning. All this must be done in near silence, as the family is only rooms away. You are sweating in your heavy wool dress, the heat from the dying fire baking you from one side, while the draught from the door chills you from the other. By the time the drawing room begins to empty and the family retires, it is well past midnight, but you are not free. Now comes the final round, the nightly locking up ritual, overseen by the butler and housekeeper. Every window must be checked, every curtain drawn, every gas jet, if you're in a modern house, turned off. You follow Mrs. Higgs with a candle, your shadow leaping and twisting on the walls like a captive ghost. As you pass the bedrooms, you hear the sounds of the family settling in. The murmur of a valet helping the master out of his coat, the soft laughter of the lady's maid brushing out the mistress's hair. These are the intimate sounds of a world you will never inhabit. Your own bed is a narrow, lumpy cot in a shared freezing room. There are no gentle hands to help you, you simply collapse. The walk back to the servants' quarters feels like the longest journey of the day. Every step is an effort of will. The excitement and adrenaline of the evening have drained away, leaving only a profound, hollow tiredness. You climb the steep, unadorned stairs, one heavy foot at a time. In the dormitory there is little conversation, no one has the energy. The rituals of undressing are mechanical. The stiff uniform comes off, layer by layer, each one feeling like it weighs a ton. The stays, which have been constricting your breath all day, are unlaced with a sigh of relief that is almost painful. You pull on a rough nightdress and splash icy water from the basin onto your face. The water doesn't feel clean, it just feels cold. You look in the small, spotted mirror. Your face is pale, your eyes are shadowed, you look older than your years. Then you hear it. A soft, rhythmic sound. One of the other girls, a scullery maid barely 15, is already asleep. She's crying softly in her sleep. It's a common sound. It's the sound of muscles that won't stop aching, of feet that are raw, of a homesickness for a place that probably doesn't exist anymore. You blow out the candle. The room is plunged into a darkness so complete it feels solid. You lie down on the thin mattress. The straw stuffing crackles beneath you. You can hear the mice skittering in the walls. In the distance, a floorboard creaks as someone in the family moves in their luxurious sleep. You close your eyes. The bell will ring again in just a few hours. But for now, in the silent, shared darkness, there is only this. The precious, fleeting nothingness of rest. From the silent exhaustion of the night shift emerges the slow, grinding truth of this life. It's not the long hours that break you, but the constant, invisible erosion of your own self. The body keeps a ledger, and the mind pays the compound interest. Today, we look past the routine and into the human cost of being a living, breathing tool. Your body is the first to keep score. Let's start with your feet. They are a lost cause. After 16 hours of constant motion on stone floors, they are swollen, blistered landscapes. Bunions are not a possibility. They are an inevitability. The shoes you're given are not made for comfort or support. They are made for durability, and they are almost certainly hand-me-downs, already molded to the peculiar deformities of the girl who had them before you. You develop a permanent, slightly limping gait that the family would probably call servant's shuffle. Your back is a single clenched knot of pain from turning mattresses, hauling coal, and scrubbing floors. The tight-laced stays don't help. They just redistribute the agony, trading a sore back for bruised ribs and shallow breath. Your hands are a public record of your work. The knuckles are red and chapped from cold water and harsh soap. The fingertips are rough and pricked raw from endless sewing. There's probably a burn on your forearm from a stray spark from the fireplace, a scar you'll carry forever. You are 17, but your joints ache like you're 70. And then there are the lungs, the constant dust from the fires and the dry sweeping the damp mold in the lower corridors, the lingering smoke from the candles and the family's cigars. It all creates a low, persistent cough that becomes the background music to your life. You call it a church cough because it only really bothers you in the quiet moments. There is no doctor for you. If you're truly ill, you might get a visit from the housekeeper who will dose you with a foul-tasting tonic of her own concoction, likely a mixture of vinegar, herbs, and sheer hope. If you don't get better quickly, you're a liability. You're moved to a sick room in the attic, away from everyone else, and your wages are stopped until you can work again. If you don't recover, well, There's always another girl from the village desperate enough to take your place. The physical toll is brutal, but it's the mind that truly suffers the slow decay. The loneliness is a physical presence. You are surrounded by people, crammed into dormitories, working in teams, and yet you are profoundly alone. You cannot complain. You cannot share your true fears or dreams. Any sign of discontent is a character flaw. Friendship is a risky venture. A confidant today could be a rival for a slightly better position tomorrow, or could use your secrets against you to curry favor with Mrs. Higgs. So you build walls. You learn to keep your eyes down and your thoughts to yourself. The world outside begins to feel like a dream. You hear snippets about politics, about wars, about new inventions, but it all feels as distant and fictional as a fairy tale. Your world has shrunk to the dimensions of this house. Your horizon is the end of the driveway. The greatest psychological weapon is the constant gentle humiliation. It's in the way the family speaks about you in the third person while you're in the room, as if you're a piece of furniture with ears. Tell the girl to fetch my shawl. It's in the way they expect you to know their whims before they do, and the flicker of annoyance when you fail to read their minds. It's the casual inspection of your work, a finger run along a picture frame searching for dust, a silent judgment that says you are not clean enough, not good enough. You are perpetually in the wrong. The food you eat is plainer, coarser. The air you breathe is colder. The light you work by is dimmer. You live in the negative space of their luxury. Over time, you start to believe it. You start to feel less than. The sharp, funny girl who arrived from the country 2 years ago is gone, replaced by this quiet, efficient ghost who jumps at the sound of her own name. What about the future? Hope is a dangerous luxury. For a woman, the only real escape routes are narrow and precarious. You could marry, but who? A footman? A stable hand? That just means trading one form of servitude for another, likely in a cramped cottage with a dozen children and even less money. You could, if you were exceptionally clever and lucky, rise through the ranks, become a lady's maid with your own small room and a slightly better wage. But that path is littered with rivals and requires a political cunning you may not possess. Or you could be dismissed. Without a character, your options are grim: the poorhouse, prostitution, or a slow starvation. This is the weight that sits on your chest every night as you try to sleep. This is the calculus of your life. There are small rebellions, of course. They are microscopic, desperate acts of self-preservation. A secret stash of sugar stolen from the kitchen, savored in the dark. A shared, silent eye roll with another maid when the master is being particularly pompous. A few minutes stolen in a sunlit corner of the garden, feeling the real warmth on your face, pretending for just a moment that you belong to yourself. These are not victories. They are life rafts. They are the reason you haven't completely vanished into the cap and apron, because underneath the uniform, the sore feet, and the silent obedience, there is still a person who remembers what sunlight feels like when it's just for you, a person who dreams, not of balls or finery, but of a room of her own, a door she can close, and a single entire day of silence. From the personal toll of servitude, we now turn to the intricate social ecosystem that governs it. Below stairs isn't a monolith of misery. It's a tightly woven web of power, privilege, and paranoia. A miniature kingdom with its own ruthless aristocracy and disposable peasantry. To survive, you must learn to navigate this invisible geography where a footman can be a king and a scullery maid less than nothing. Let's map this hierarchy, this great chain of being for the barely seen. At the very top, the celestial beings, the butler and the housekeeper. Mr. Sterling and Mrs. Higgs don't just have jobs, they have portfolios. They are the viceroys of this underground empire. Mr. Sterling, the butler, is the master of all things male and liquid. He controls the wine cellar, a sacred grotto locked with a key that never leaves his person. He polishes the silver himself, a ritual of immense symbolic importance. He oversees the footmen, who are essentially his palace guard. He has his own sitting room, takes his meals alone, and is addressed as Mr. Sterling by everyone, including the family. He is the closest a servant gets to being gentry, and he knows it. His power is absolute, quiet, and cold. Mrs. Higgs, the housekeeper, is the queen of the female domain and the physical fabric of the house. She holds the keys, literally a massive jangling ring of them, to every linen cupboard, every storeroom, every closet. She is the keeper of the inventories, the judge of your dusting, the architect of your daily routine. She controls the stores of soap, candles and tea like a wartime general. Her authority is practical, pervasive, and often maternal in the way a hawk is maternal to its chicks. Beneath them, the landed gentry, the specialized staff. The cook, a temperamental artist who rules the kitchen hell with an iron ladle and a shout that can peel paint. He answers to the housekeeper for budgets, but to no one for his sauces. The valet and the lady's maid. These are the elite. The valet is the master's shadow, a confidant of sorts. He knows the state of his master's finances, his mistresses, his insecurities. He has access to the private chambers, to the fine clothes, to the secrets. The lady's maid is similarly privileged. She is a hairdresser, a stylist, an occasional therapist. She reads her mistress's moods, handles her jewels, and enjoys a level of intimacy and trust that grants her significant social capital downstairs. They often look down on the lower servants, considering themselves almost part of the family. Then, the great middle class, the footmen. They are the public face of servitude, chosen for their height, their posture, their pleasing faces. Their job is to be handsome, silent, and efficient. They serve at table, announce guests, and ride on the back of the carriage. They wear livery, a uniform of someone else's prestige, and they often develop the swagger to match. They have little real power, but they have visibility, and in this world that counts for a lot. Then we get to the workers, the housemaids, you. You are the infantry. You are numerous, interchangeable, and largely invisible. Your world is defined by the tasks no one else wants to do. And at the very, very bottom, the untouchables, the scullery maid and the stable boys. The scullery maid is the kitchen's beast of burden. She is 12, maybe 13 years old. Her world is a sink of greasy, scalding water, a mountain of pots, and the constant, sharp criticism of the cook and the kitchen maids. Her hands are permanently red and raw. She sleeps on a sack of straw in a corner of the kitchen. She is the lowest of the low. This hierarchy is enforced with a rigidity that would impress a medieval monarch. You do not speak to a superior unless spoken to. You do not make eye contact. You yield the best place by the fire, the best cut of meat, the easiest tasks. A footman would never deign to be seen courting a housemaid. It would be a social demotion. A lady's maid would rather die than be caught sharing a confidence with a scullery maid. This isn't just about pride, it's about survival. In this closed system, information is currency and alliances are everything. A word from the valet to the butler can get a footman promoted. A whispered complaint from a jealous lady's maid to the housekeeper can get a promising housemaid dismissed. You learn to listen at keyholes. You learn to interpret the tone of a command, the subtle shift in Mrs. Higgs's expression when she assigns chores. Is she testing you? Is she setting you up to fail? Is she rewarding you for some unnoticed loyalty? The politics are Byzantine. There are factions, the kitchen staff versus the upstairs staff, the footman versus the stable hands. Alliances are forged over shared resentment and broken over a stolen slice of cake. It's a constant low-grade war fought with whispers, stolen moments, and the strategic allocation of slightly warmer blankets. And through it all, the family remains blissfully, arrogantly unaware. They see a well-oiled machine. They don't see the secret romance between the second footman and the head housemaid. conducted in whispered conversations in the linen closet. They don't see the cook smuggling out leftover pastries for the scullery maid, a tiny act of rebellion against the established order. They don't see the simmering hatred the valet holds for the butler, whom he considers a fossil. This web of power is what truly defines your existence. The work is hard, but the navigation is exhausting. You are not just cleaning a house. You are playing a game of chess in the dark, where the pieces are people, and the penalty for a wrong move is social and professional annihilation. You learn that the real master of the house isn't the man in the study. It's the man who holds the keys to the wine cellar and the woman who holds the keys to the linen. And your entire future depends on remembering which of them to fear the most. From the intricate politics of the servant hierarchy emerges something so rare it feels almost mythical: free time. In a world measured in bells and tasks, the concept of your own time is foreign, dangerous, and utterly intoxicating. Once a week, if you're lucky, you might get a few hours to yourself, a tiny crack in the fortress of duty where you can almost remember what it means to be human. This isn't a weekend. This isn't even a full day. This is perhaps Sunday afternoon, from 2 o'clock until 6, after the family has returned from church and retired to their rooms for a few hours of rest. These 4 hours are more precious than gold. They are planned for, dreamed about, hoarded like a secret treasure. The first challenge is getting out of the house. You can't just walk out the front door. That would be unthinkable. You use the servants' entrance, a low, narrow door tucked away behind the kitchen gardens that leads to the back lane. But before you can even think of leaving, you must change. You cannot be seen in public in your uniform. The uniform marks you. It tells everyone exactly what you are and who you belong to. So you have what's called your Sunday best, usually a simple plain dress of slightly better material than your work clothes, but still unmistakably the clothing of the working class. It might be a hand-me-down from the lady's maid, or something you've saved for months to have made. You put it on carefully, your fingers fumbling with the buttons. It feels strange to wear something that isn't scratchy wool. It feels even stranger to look in the small spotted mirror and see a girl, not a maid. Then the transformation is complete. You step out of the servants' entrance, and for the first time all week, you take a breath of air that doesn't smell of soot, grease, or polish. It smells of grass, of damp earth, of freedom. The world outside the manor walls is both familiar and alien. The village is just a mile's walk down the lane. It's not much, a church, a tavern, a few shops, but to you it's a metropolis. The walk itself is a ceremony. You're not hurrying. You're not looking at the ground. You're walking at your own pace, looking at the sky, feeling the sun on your face. It's a revolutionary act. In the village, you might meet up with other servants from neighboring estates. There's an unspoken camaraderie among you. You don't talk about work. You talk about everything else. You share gossip. You laugh. You complain about the weather. For a few hours, you're not a housemaid or a footman. You're just a young person in a field, sharing a piece of gingerbread bought with your meager wages. This is where courtships happen. A footman from a different house might buy you a ribbon from the market stall. A stable boy might walk with you along the river. These relationships are conducted in whispers and stolen glances, away from the prying eyes of butlers and housekeepers. They are fragile things, built on the thin ice of limited time and constant surveillance back at the house. But in this moment, they feel real. They feel like a future. The tavern is the social hub. You don't go into the main room, of course. That's for the farmers and the tradesmen. Servants gather in the back room or the yard. You might share a single pint of ale, not the thick, lukewarm stuff you get in the servants' hall, but a proper, foaming pint. It tastes like heaven. Someone might have a fiddle. Someone else might start singing a song that's definitely not approved by the church. For a few glorious minutes, there is music and dancing. Your feet, which have ached all week from pacing stone floors, now ache from joy. You feel the rhythm in your bones, a counter-melody to the constant regimented tick of the house clocks. But the shadow of the manor is always there. You check the position of the sun constantly. As it begins to dip towards the horizon, a dread settles in your stomach. The freedom is ending. The return walk is always quieter. The laughter dies down. The conversations become more practical. You mentally prepare yourself for the week ahead. You think of the bells, the dusting, the endless invisible expectations. As you approach the servants' entrance, you pause for one last moment. You take a deep breath, storing up the memory of fresh air. Then you open the door and the smell hits you again. The smell of the house. It's the smell of beeswax, coal dust, and simmering resentment. It's the smell of your life. You change back into your uniform in the dim light of the dormitory. The stiff fabric feels like a prison sentence. The cap pins your hair back, and with it your personality. You look in the mirror again. The girl is gone. The maid has returned. You smooth down your apron and go downstairs. The bells will start ringing for evening duties soon. The 4 hours of freedom already feel like a dream, a story you heard about someone else. But as you kneel to polish the brass door handle, you feel the slight ache in your feet from dancing, and you allow yourself a small, secret smile. They can own your time, your labor, your body. But for those 4 hours, they didn't own your soul. And that knowledge, that tiny, burning ember of self, is what gets you through the next 6 days, until freedom glimmers again. From the fleeting taste of Sunday freedom, you return to the eternal rhythm of the house, a rhythm measured not in hours, but in seasons. The Georgian manor doesn't just exist in time, it consumes it, and your life becomes a wheel that turns with the year, each season bringing its own special flavor of exhaustion. The work never changes, only its texture. Spring arrives not with birdsong, but with the sound of every window in the house being thrown open at once. This is the great cleaning, and it makes your normal daily dusting look like a casual flick of the wrist. For weeks, the house is in uproar. Every curtain must be taken down, beaten within an inch of its life in the yard, and rehung. Every carpet is rolled up, dragged outside, and beaten until the dust clouds choke the air and turn the sky grey. Every piece of furniture is moved, every cupboard emptied, every surface scrubbed with a ferocity that feels personal. The smell of vinegar and beeswax becomes a permanent fixture in your nostrils. Your arms ache from beating, your knees are raw from scrubbing, and the whole time the family complains about the disruption as if they're the ones doing the work. Then comes the polishing. Oh, the polishing. Miles of woodwork, acres of furniture. You work in teams, passing cloths and pots of polish down the line like a factory. The house gleams with a brutal, sterile beauty that will last approximately until the first guest tracks mud across the floor. As spring melts into summer, the work shifts outdoors. The family decamps to their country estate or to London for the season. But a skeleton staff remains, and you're on it. This should be easier, but it's not. It's just different. With the family gone, the deep cleaning begins in earnest. This is when the storerooms are cleared. The silver is counted and polished until you can see your tired face in every spoon, and the furniture is covered in ghostly white dust sheets. The empty house echoes with your footsteps. It's eerie. Without the family to serve, you become a caretaker for a sleeping giant. The days are long and hot. You're tasked with airing the house, opening windows, brushing down walls, ensuring no damp or moths take hold. It's preventive maintenance on a colossal scale. You also get the truly disgusting jobs that couldn't be done with the family in residence. Cleaning the ice house, a dark, slimy pit that smells of decay. Scrubbing out the vast wine cellars, fighting off spiders the size of your hand. It's dirty, lonely work. The only break is the garden. You're sometimes sent to help the undergardener, picking fruit for preserving or weeding the vegetable patches. For a few hours, you feel the real sun on your neck, not the filtered version that comes through the drawing room windows. You taste a strawberry, warm from the plant, and for a second you forget you're still working. Then autumn crashes in with a fury of wind and rain, and the family returns. The house must be woken from its slumber. The dust sheets come off, the fires are lit again. The workload doesn't just return, it multiplies. The hunting season begins, which means early mornings for the stable boys and endless mud tracked through halls you just cleaned. There are harvest suppers and shooting parties. The kitchen works at a frenzied pace, and you are run ragged, turning rooms over between guests, hauling luggage, and responding to a constant chorus of bells. The air turns cold, and with it comes a new kind of dread. The drafts return, sneaking under doors and through window frames. Your uniform is never warm enough. You're constantly fighting a losing battle against the cold, your fingers numb as you try to sew or polish. The worst job of autumn is preparing the house for winter. Every window must be sealed, every door must be checked for drafts. Stores must be laid in as if for a siege. Sacks of flour, barrels of apples, strings of onions. It all has to be carried, sorted and stored. You feel like a squirrel, but without the joy of actually getting to enjoy the hoard. Then winter descends, and the house becomes a prison of darkness and cold. Your day now starts and ends in total blackness. The cold in the servants' quarters is so profound you can see your breath hanging in the air like a ghost. Getting out of bed is an act of pure will. The stone floors are like ice. The water in the jug is often skimmed with a thin layer of ice. You dress shivering, your fingers too stiff to properly lace your stays. The fires become the absolute center of your universe. Keeping them going is a matter of survival. You haul more coal than ever, your back a constant complaint. The world outside the windows is grey and dead. The family stays indoors more, which means more mess, more demands, more opportunities to be found wanting. The holidays bring a bizarre mix of frantic activity and profound loneliness. The house is decorated with holly and ivy. There are feasts and parties upstairs. You can hear the music and laughter, a world away. Downstairs, you might get a special meal, a slightly better cut of meat, a glass of wine, and perhaps a small gift from the family, usually something practical like a new pair of stockings or a shawl. It's a token, a bone thrown to the dogs. You're grateful for it, and you hate yourself for being grateful. The longest night of the year passes, and slowly, imperceptibly, the cycle begins again. The days get longer, the snow melts, the first green shoots appear, and you realize with a sinking feeling that it's time for the great cleaning again. You've completed a full revolution. A year has passed. You are a year older, a year more tired, a year more ingrained in the grooves of this life. The seasons turn, the family comes and goes, but you remain. The wheel keeps spinning, and you're just trying not to fall off. From the endless turning of the seasons emerges the grim question that haunts every servant from their first day. How does this end? There is no retirement plan, no gold watch, no cottage by the sea. There are only exits, and most of them are paved with fear. The fantasy of freedom collides with the brutal arithmetic of survival, and the results are rarely pretty. Let's start with the best-case scenario, the servant's dream, promotion. This isn't just about a few extra shillings a year. It's about crossing a social chasm within your own world. Imagine becoming a lady's maid. You trade the communal dormitory for a tiny, sloping, ceilinged room of your own, probably adjacent to your mistress's chambers. It's not much, but the door has a lock. The silence in that room at night is a physical pleasure. Your work changes from brute labor to delicate art. You become a connoisseur of hair, a master of fabrics, a keeper of secrets. You handle jewels that cost more than a village. You learn the intimate geography of another woman's face and moods. The pay is better. The cast-off clothes you receive are of a quality you could never afford. You eat slightly better food, but the price is absolute assimilation. You are now tied to your mistress's whims more completely than ever. Her bad mood is your bad day. Her social failure is your professional failure. You travel with her, you wake when she wakes, you have no life outside her shadow. You become a specialist, and specialization is a gilded cage. If she dismisses you, your very specific skills might not be needed elsewhere. You have climbed the ladder, but the ladder is leaning against a very high wall. For a man, the pinnacle is valet. The same rules apply. You are the guardian of the master's ego and appearance. You know where the bodies are buried, sometimes literally. This knowledge is your power and your peril. The other good exit is marriage. This is the romantic fantasy, the Jane Austen ending for the lower classes. But let's be clear, marrying another servant doesn't mean freedom. It means pooling your servitude. A footman and a housemaid might marry, but they can't both keep their jobs once children come. So the wife leaves service, and the husband's wage, barely enough for one, must now stretch to 3, then 4, then 5. You move into a cramped, damp cottage on the estate, and your wife, now a mother, takes in washing or sewing, working just as hard as she did in the manor, but without the regular meals or the roof over her head being guaranteed. You are now tied to the land and the family in a new, even more precarious way. Your children will likely become servants themselves, the cycle beginning anew. This isn't an escape, it's a transfer of chains. Then there is the grey area, leaving for another position. This requires a character, a written reference from your current employer. This single sheet of paper is your passport to life. It must be glowing. It must attest to your honesty, diligence, and good temper. Without it, you are untouchable. The power this gives the butler and housekeeper is absolute. They can hold this paper over your head for years, demanding perfect obedience in exchange for the promise of a future. The anxiety of earning this character, of not putting a foot wrong for years on end, is a slow-burning torture. And then we arrive at the bad endings. The most common is simply being worn out. There is no 65-year-old housemaid. By 40, your body is a wreck. Your back is gone, your knees are shot, your hands are crippled with arthritis. You can no longer turn the heavy mattresses or kneel to scrub floors. You are slow. You are a liability. You are dismissed with a small pension if the family is generous, or with nothing but a pat on the back and a thank you for your service if they are not. Where do you go? You have no family, or the family you have is as poor as you are. You might end up in the parish workhouse, a dreaded institution designed to be so miserable that only the truly desperate would enter. It's a place of last resort, where you break rocks or pick oakum until you die. The final, most terrifying exit is dismissal without a character. This is the end of the world. It can happen for anything, being caught stealing a slice of cake, talking back to the housekeeper, being accused of a moral transgression, like being found with a man in your room. It doesn't matter if the accusation is true. Perception is everything. Once you are cast out, you are marked. No respectable household will hire you. Your options shrink to nothing. For a woman, this often means prostitution. For a man, it means day labor, begging, or crime. The transition from servant to streetwalker could be a matter of days. The fine linen and good posture you cultivated in service become your only marketable assets in a much darker marketplace. This is the sword of Damocles that hangs over every servant's head. Every time you are tempted to complain, to steal a moment of rest, to answer back, you remember the abyss that waits just outside the manor gates. The warmth of the kitchen, the certainty of a meal, even the scratchy wool of your uniform. They are all that stand between you and a cold, hungry death in the ditch. So you bite your tongue, you swallow your pride, you kneel and you scrub. Because the only thing worse than a life in service is the only way out most people ever get. From the grim calculus of exits and endings, we step back to see the final haunting truth. Long after the last servant has been worn down and discarded, the house remains. The Georgian Manor stands as a silent witness, its very stones holding the memories of thousands of forgotten lives. Your time here is temporary, but your mark, the subtle wear on the stairs, the polish on the banister, becomes part of its permanent story. Walk through the house now, not as a servant, but as a ghost of the future. Look closer at the physical space. That slight dip in the middle of the servants' staircase, that wasn't designed by some architect. That was carved by 2 centuries of tired feet, thousands of girls and women carrying coal scuttles and chamber pots, their weight pressing down on the same spot day after day, year after year, until the stone itself gave up and surrendered. Run your hand along the wooden banister in the main hallway. Feel how smooth it is, how it almost seems to glow. That's not just polish. That's the cumulative effect of countless hands, footmen, maids, butlers, gripping it over generations, the oil from their skin, the constant friction of their touch, slowly wearing away the sharp edges until what remains is something soft, almost alive. These are the real monuments, not the grand portraits in the gallery, but these subtle human erosions. In the kitchen, look at the floor around the great hearth. The stones are permanently stained with decades of dropped food, spilled broth, and generations of tears. That dark patch in the corner isn't shadow. It's the ghost of 1,000 overturned pots, a permanent record of the cook's temper. The house is a palimpsest, and we are the invisible writing. Up in the attic dormitories, carve your initials into the wooden beam above your cot. It's a tiny act of rebellion, a desperate scratch in the dark saying, "I was here. You're not the first." The beam is covered in them, faint spidery letters and dates going back 50 years. Martha, 1742. Anne, 1761. Elizabeth, 1778. A secret sisterhood of the exhausted. You don't know their stories, but you know their fatigue. You know the feeling that drove them to take a hairpin and carve their name into the wood, trying to leave some proof that they existed beyond the uniform. The house knows their names, even if the family never did. The routines you follow aren't new. You are part of a chain. The specific way Mrs. Higgs folds the linen, the particular rhythm the footmen use. To clean the silver, the exact angle at which the curtains are drawn. These are rituals passed down from servant to servant, a silent oral tradition of subservience. You learned from the maid who came before you, and you will teach the one who comes after. There is comfort in this continuity, but also a deep, profound sadness. You are a link in a chain of anonymous labor that stretches back further than anyone can remember and will continue long after you're gone. The family changes, fashions change, but the fundamental architecture of power, the unspoken contract between the served and the servant, remains shockingly constant. A new young master might be kinder, a new mistress might be less observant, but the bells still ring, the stairs are still steep, and the dust still settles. You are living a life that countless others have lived before you. Your specific aches and humiliations are not unique. They are part of a pattern, a design as intricate and fixed as the wallpaper in the drawing room. This realization is both crushing and liberating. Your suffering is not personal, it is systemic. It is baked into the very bricks and mortar. The house was designed for this. The separate staircases, the hidden passages, the placement of the bells, every architectural choice was made to enforce the hierarchy, to make the servants invisible while keeping them indispensable. You are living inside a machine, and you are one of its moving parts. The machine doesn't care about you. It only cares about function. And yet there is a legacy here that isn't entirely tragic. It is a legacy of resilience, of quiet endurance, of communities built in the cracks, the friendships forged in the freezing dormitory, the secret romances, the shared jokes at the family's expense. These are the human victories against the machine. The house may remember the wear on the stairs, But it also remembers the whispered conversations in the linen cupboard, the stolen kisses in the pantry, the collective sigh of relief when the last guest finally left. These small, defiant acts of personhood are as much a part of the house's history as the grand balls and the political intrigues of the family. They are the true beating heart of the place. So, when you finally leave, whether through promotion, marriage, dismissal, or death, you do not leave unchanged, and you do not leave without leaving something of yourself behind. A tiny, invisible part of you remains in the smoothness of the banister, the dip in the stair, the initials on the beam. You become part of the house's memory, a ghost in its machine. And the house, this great, silent, beautiful and cruel entity, will remember you long after the world has forgotten your name. It holds the stories of all the Mollys, Janes and Toms who pass through its corridors, their lives measured not in years, but in tasks completed, bells answered, and the slow, steady wearing down of stone. From the silent memories held in the house's stones, we arrive at our final stop, not an ending, but an echo. The world of the Georgian servant may seem distant, a museum piece behind velvet ropes, but its vibrations still hum through our modern lives in ways we rarely pause to notice. The legacy of those invisible thousands is written not just in worn staircases, but in the very architecture of our social world. Step into any grand hotel today. The experience is designed to feel seamless, effortless. Your room is magically clean, your food appears, your needs are anticipated. But behind that seamless experience is the same basic machinery, an army of people moving through back corridors, using service elevators, entering through unmarked doors. The modern housekeeper pushing her cart, the room service attendant, the laundress. They are the direct descendants of the housemaids and scullery maids. The hierarchy has just been rebranded. The butler is now the hotel manager, the housekeeper still holds the keys, and the footmen wear suits and call themselves concierge. The structure remains, polished for a new century, or consider the gig economy. The delivery driver racing against the clock, the task rabbit assembling furniture, the cleaner who comes while you're at work. These are the new casual laborers. The disposable workforce without the dubious security of room and board. They work in the background of our lives, making our comfort possible while remaining largely invisible. We might know their app-based pseudonyms, but we don't know their stories, their aches, their fears of being dismissed with a bad rating. The digital equivalent of a poor character. The anxiety is the same, only the technology has changed. The language of service has evolved, but the power dynamics often feel hauntingly familiar. The expectation of instant gratification, the subtle dehumanization of the service worker, the way we can complain with a click and never see the consequence on another human's livelihood. It's all a digital amplification of the bell pull. We ring, and we expect someone to answer, without considering the person running up the stairs. Even in our own homes, the ghost of the servant lingers. The open-plan kitchen, the heart of the modern home, is a direct rejection of the segregated, hidden world of the Georgian kitchen. We celebrate the fact that we can see the work now, that the cook is part of the party. But in doing so, we've simply absorbed the labor into our own lives. The labor didn't disappear, it was democratized. Now we are all our own housemaids, our own cooks, our own scullery maids. We spend our weekends doing the great cleaning. We fret over the perfect dinner party like a cook preparing for a shooting luncheon. And we feel the same bone-deep fatigue at the end of it all. The work has just been redistributed, not eliminated. The most profound echo, however, is in the psychological landscape. The Georgian servant lived with the constant knowledge of their replaceability. One misstep, and there were a dozen others ready to take their place. How many modern workers feel that same precarity? The fear of a bad performance review, of corporate restructuring, of being outsourced or automated out of a job. The feeling of being a cog in a machine you don't control, your value measured only in your output. This is not a new anxiety. It is the oldest story of labor. The servant knew it in their bones, and now we know it in our souls. We have traded the physical confinement of the manor for the psychological confinement of the spreadsheet. But the cage, in many ways, feels just as real. So what do we do with this echo? This uncomfortable resonance between their world and ours? The answer isn't to feel guilt, but to practice recognition, to look at the worn step in the historic house and see the individual who made it. To look at the delivery driver and see a person, not just a function. To understand that the convenience of our modern world is still built on layers of often unseen labor. The legacy of the Georgian servant is a lesson in empathy. It's a reminder that history isn't about dates and wars and kings. It's about the woman who had to empty the chamber pot, the man who had to stand perfectly still for hours holding a tray, the child who cried herself to sleep in a freezing attic. Their struggles for dignity, for a moment of rest, for a shred of control over their own lives, are the same struggles that continue today in different forms. They were not so different from us. They loved, they dreamed, they hoped, they endured. They left their mark, not in history books, but in the smoothness of a banister, the memory of a house. And now, in this story. The bell may have stopped ringing, but if you listen closely in the quiet moments, you can still hear the echo of their footsteps in the hall, a reminder of where we came from, and perhaps a warning about the invisible architectures we are building for ourselves today. Their story is our story. The names have changed, the uniforms have updated, but the fundamental human drama of work, power, and the search for a sliver of freedom remains the same. The echo is here. All we have to do is listen. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories hidden in plain sight. We'll see you next time.